Curie, which we are going to talk about in a few minutes, is here under pillar 1, which is excellent science. But we will say, as I mentioned, a few things about European Research Council, the ERC, at a later stage. You see that this is a huge program. You see that for 7 years, there is a budget of 95.5 billion euros, which is huge. And you can see that the ERC is quite substantial in terms of funding, but the Marie Skłodowska-Curie is also very important. So who funds it? The participating countries, which are 27 member states, and countries which are considered to be associated countries. Nowadays, we are aware of 3 which have already confirmed their participation or about to be confirmed. The United Kingdom is on the progress, everything almost being agreed on. These are very important terms. All the 27 member states and the countries which are and will be associated countries in Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions are considered Europe, okay? Regardless of their geographical location. Because as you know, Israel is in Asia, but still in this program, when we become associated countries, we will be named European country. Why is that important? You will see it later on at the Marie Skłodowska-Curie and ERC, how is it important. Okay. Everything I'm about to tell you in a few minutes, you must remember that at this stage, we still have only our draft. So some things may change, maybe will be a little bit different by the time the official documents are published. All pieces of information I say now and contradict later on are not binding by any means. The European Commission. You have to follow only the official documents once published. Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions is the program we will talk about right now. You see that unlike all the other programs which were mentioned, this is named after a distinguished researcher. And you will see that in a way, her life story is reflected very well in the program itself. To start with, she moved. She was born in Poland. First degrees were, she studied in Warsaw, but then she had to move to conduct her research to France. And indeed, physical mobility from one country to another is obligatory under Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, for all actions. The ones who experience ITN right now, Euroageism, know exactly what I'm talking about. So that's the first thing. The second thing which this program enables you is to benefit from intersectoral mobility, meaning right now, many of you are at the universities, but if at a later stage you think that research is much more appealing to you or relevant, and you would like to try working at a company, meaning moving to the industry and more applied type of research, you could do that by Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that, of course, she won a Nobel Prize, meaning that she was extremely talented and very distinguished researcher. The types of researchers they are looking for are the ones who are indeed the most talented researchers. So that's one of the things. Do you remember I was telling you, you have to start planning your future activities? You have to start planning much, much better. I'm sure that with Liat and all other supervisors you have in your network, you do very well, but take it, if you can, one step further. with all your activities in the future. The third thing is, I hope you know that she won actually 2 Nobel Prizes. And not only that, but one was in physics and one was in chemistry. And indeed, one thing that they are looking for is, they are providing is an opportunity for interdisciplinary research. So if you wish, should you wish, you could do that. I'm sure that even in Euroageism, you feel it, you do some of that. So that's, now you see it in a different way. As I mentioned, Marie Skłodowska-Curie is the second program under Pillar 1, which is Excellent Science. So what are the key features? First of all, it aims at supporting the training and career development of researchers from all over the world. I think the ones who are at Euroageism don't need me to say that because you experience it yourself. But you can see that it goes from PhD studies to postdoctoral fellowships and other types of programs, opportunities. And then the stimulation of international, intersectoral, and interdisciplinary cooperation is done also by close collaboration with the non-academic sector, and especially the SMEs, the engine of the economy. You know that it is officially for every stage of your career, but in reality, the best opportunities are for doctoral and postdoctoral stages. And as I mentioned, excellent research is obligatory. It is a bottom-up approach. You are the one who suggests innovative, interesting, and most relevant research. Remember what I said at the back of your mind. You should also consider that. And of course, one thing which is a huge advantage is the fact that unlike different types of programs, this specific one offer you attractive, very attractive working and employment conditions. And it aims at boosting your career, changing the way things are done at the organizations you are involved in and the structures of the organization, therefore. Officially, there are 5 different programs. You know one of them. These are the new names of the programs, and if by mistake I will continue using the wrong name, please excuse me. These are the first few weeks we are using the new ones. So what you have now is the ITN, Innovative Training Network, but this is changing to MSCA Doctoral Network, which is a network for PhD students, candidates. We will talk about MSCA Postdoctoral Fellowship, which is the next step. There are also staff exchanges opportunities, but this is not at this stage the most attractive for you. So with your permission, I will ignore it unless you ask me about it. MSCA Co-Fund is co-funding training programs at national level or regional level. But these are other options I will later on discuss and present to you. And the MSCA and Citizens is what used to be the Researchers' Night, the European Researchers' Night, which I know you took part in, at least in Israel, in Bar Ilan, about a year ago, if I remember well. Yeah, last year it was, right, Liat? You were there last year. Okay, so we will focus on MSCA postdoctoral fellowships. First of all, it is focused this time on researchers from any nationality. The mobility rule, which you are familiar with, I will explain again, but is binding. The mobility rule says that you could move to a country only if you were not spending more than 12 months in the last 3 years in that specific country. So I will try to explain it in a different way. For example, the ones who want to travel, let's say, to Italy, okay? You could move to Italy as long as in the past 3 years. And when I say past, it is you start counting, or you count backwards from the deadline of the call, which this year is expected to be 15 of September. Next year it will be 14 of September. So you count backwards. So if we're talking about 21, we count 3 years backwards to 2019 and so on. And we see how many days did we spend in Italy. And if we are talking about spending time in Italy, it means for work or residence. If you were there on a fantastic holiday before the COVID-19 pandemic, it doesn't count. But if you were working there, then Italy is not a destination for you if you exceeded the 12 months in that specific period. As you know, this is for all research domains. It is a bottom-up approach. Your innovative, magnificent research ideas could be put forward. It aims at providing you opportunity for new mindsets and approaches, just like the thing that you are doing now at your project, your fellowship. And as you see, it all the time looks at developing skills at the academy, but also in the other non-academic sector. If you wish to continue your research at governmental places, offices, if you wish to continue your research at the industry, hospitals, some type of, if relevant, museums, all sorts of things, yes, you should get training along these fellowships. And the training should be not only about the research itself, but also about what is named as soft skill, like public engagement, communication, IPR, which stands for intellectual property right, and so on and so forth. When we talk about postdoctoral fellowships, we are talking about two types. We are talking about European fellowship and global fellowships. You remember I told you that even if you are located outside of, if the country you would like to go to is located geographically outside of Europe, as long as it is associated country, not to mention, of course, the member state, this country is considered to be European, and therefore, when you go there, you go on European fellowship. European fellowship lasts between 12 to 24 months, but if you wish to go for this period, 12 to 24 months, to an academy, like another university, and later on move to the industry or to the non-academic sector, you could extend your fellowship by 6 months. Okay? I will tell you later on another opportunity, but that goes as long as the first duration, 12 to 24 months, is at the academy and not at the non-academic sector. Another type of fellowship, all the other countries in the world, which are not named European at this program, this kind of fellowship is named global fellowship. And this global fellowship means that for a duration of 12 to 24 months, you go to a country which is not European, but then you are obliged to return to Europe for additional period of 12 months. The reason is that since Europe fund this kind of fellowship, they would like you to bring whatever you gained, the knowledge, the skills, methodologies, connections, back to Europe. So you could integrate all of this back in Europe. When you when you submit a proposal, you have to include all the ingredients, meaning that you have to know in advance if you wish to submit a proposal at a university, at a certain university with a specific supervisor or supervisors. If you wish to have a secondment, I will talk about the secondment in a second, and if you wish to extend your fellowship by 6 months more by moving to non-academic sector, which is called placement. Secondment means that during your fellowship, you move for a period of time, which could be up to 1/3 of your fellowship, to another organization, which could be nowadays in any country. It is best that this secondment is done in a different sector. It is best, but it could be that you need this secondment to go to, let's say, if we follow the example I gave you, if you went for a fellowship at the university, at a certain university, and then you need to go to another university for secondment because there are some skills that you need for your future career, and you should gain it over there, only over there, because the specialist is over there, for example. There is a tiny little downside. I don't know if you are familiar with that, but this fellowship is extremely popular. Last year, more than 11,000 applications were submitted for only about 2,000 fellowships under the postdoctoral fellowships. Back then it was considered individual fellowship, but it is exactly the same. As a regard, due to the high demand and people would like it to be successful, they have now introduced some limitations. The first is that you must have a PhD diploma in your hand, or at least official הגנה על התואר, נו, ברח לי מהראש, ליאת.
Defense.
כן, אבל יש לזה שם אחר, לרגע ברח לי. Okay, let's say defense. When you defend your PhD. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that the one who submit in 2021 and didn't reach the minimal score of 70 will not be eligible to submit in 2022. That means that you have to be very careful when you submit your proposal. Another thing, which is actually named, which is actually written first, is the limited research experience. That means that researchers will be eligible as long as their career is up to 8 years from the date of the PhD diploma. As you see, there are possible extensions. One thing that we heard of at this stage, I relate to it as a rumor with your permission, because we don't have the official document and there are still negotiations, is that time you spent conducting research outside the European countries will not be counted in the total of 8 years after your PhD diploma. So this is something that still is a little bit hesitating with. I'm a little bit hesitating with. What will you gain? So these are the sums of money which we have to look at. The first is, you can see now that there are two types of funding. The first is contribution for the recruited researcher. And the second is the institutional unit contribution. Everything you see here is per month of activity. Depends on the length of your fellowship. It is, of course, multiple. The first part is living allowance. You see it is 5,150 euros per month. However, unfortunately for you, it is not the sum of money you will see in your bank account, because this is the gross that the host institute gets, and this is the sum of which all deductions at all levels of taxes and social benefits and all other deductions are cut from this sum. That means that this sum you will see in your bank account. Of this sum you will see in your bank account, it depends on the country, it depends on many things, between 50% to 2/3, it depends. Another thing you have to consider is the destination you go to, because each country has its own coefficiency factor, which means the rate of living. How expensive is this country in comparison to Belgium? Because Belgium is 100%. For example, Israel is, you get additional 7.2%, but other countries, it is below 100%, meaning that this sum is also deducted. So you have to be careful. On top of this sum, you will get the mobility allowance, which is 600 euros. That's it. No additional calculation. By chance, if you have a family, you will get also 660 euros. So that would be a salary. In case any of you suffers from physical and or mental disability, and this kind of disability is not getting is getting in your way in terms of becoming a successful researcher, and there is no other kind of funding from national security or any other sources which address this kind of challenge, then you can ask for special need allowance, and that would be on top. There is a certain sum. You can see here the different things. In case we are talking about people who had to have a break for good reasons like maternity leave or unfortunate circumstances like disease or accidents, or God forbid, all these sad things, then your employer will get some funding in order to cover the duration of the period which you won't get, you won't be able to work. The host institution gets 1,000 euros for your research, for your traveling, for anything which will advance your career, but they also get some funding for management and indirect cost in order to assist your research. So this is the unit cost, this is the contribution the EU provides for your fellowship. As I mentioned, the calls, which we are now aware of, but with the Brexit and everything that is delayed, we expect it to be as is, but maybe the dates will change a bit. So the deadline for this year is 15th of September. I assume many of you need the next year's deadline, which is 14th of September. If there are more changes, we will keep you updated. But for the following years, we expect it to be in any case in September, the exact date to be decided. That's all I have to say about Marie Curie, but there are some things I would like to add a little bit, sorry, about the postdoctoral fellowship, but there are a little bit more I would like to share with you. You could use all these links, very short and nice movies sometimes, explanations, additional information. But as I mentioned, Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions provide another type of action, which is co-fund. You can't submit a proposal to this co-fund, the MSCA co-fund, but you can benefit from co-fund. For example, you wish to go to a country which has to a certain maybe organization or region which has a co-fund program. You can explore all these options under this link. It gets you to Euroageism jobs portal. You will see that, sorry, this is not the one, but we will add the Euroageism jobs portal where you can find all positions for postdoc. You can search by country. You can search by keywords, things that you are interested, and you could find many opportunities. And yet, I would say the best options are for you to know in advance and to familiarize yourself with a certain researcher, a supervisor. You would like that person to lead you onward. As you are now in an ITN project and you get to know many supervisors and different attitudes, please use this network to advance your career. This is a huge advantage. Don't give up and don't miss it. It's a wonderful opportunity. Take advantage of that. With your permission, I would like to show you why I'm thinking about the ERC. You can find here a short video which we did a few years ago with a few Israeli successful researchers who gained ERC grants, and they could give you insights of the importance of submitting an ERC proposal. As we mentioned, this is the first program under the excellent pillar. You can see that there are three individual grants, and these are set by the terms or the experience you have in research. So the first is named Starting Grant, and it supports principal investigators when you become principal investigator who are at the very early stages of their career. You see that the funding is 1.5 up to 1.5 million euros for 5 years, with additional funding under different circumstances of 1 million euros. So you see, it's a huge sum of money, and that's why everyone in Europe aims to be there. The second stage is Consolidator Grant, and this is for a group which is a little bit more advanced. You see that the funding is now 2 million euros with additional of 1 million. And the last one, which I hope the few years ahead of you, is advanced grant. And there you see these are very well-established researchers, and they are already leading in their scientific field. And this funding is 2.5 million euros for 5 years with an option of additional 1 million euros. But they all have in ERC to demonstrate that they have groundbreaking nature, they have ambition, and their ideas are feasible in terms of groundbreaking scientific proposal. So the starting grants in terms of time after the PhD date on the diploma, you see it becomes a very important thing. So don't lose your diploma. We have a few researchers who lost their diploma. It's a big deal now. So don't lose your diploma. It is 2 to 5 years after your PhD. For the consolidator, it is 7 to 12 years after the PhD, and advanced, there is 10 and beyond. To let you understand how important it is to plan your activities and your publications and everything, see that already at the starting stage, meaning 2 to 7 years after your date on the diploma, you must have up to 5 publications. And even though it says up to, you should write 5 publications in major international peer-reviewed multidisciplinary scientific journals, etc., etc. So start publishing now. Get some time for your publications. Don't delay it longer and longer because you have to be there. You see that there are also, it depends on your scientific fields, if there are monographs or patents, it depends. Invited presentation and internationally established conferences and so on, and prizes and awards and academy memberships, all these things start planning now, so you will reach that destination. Even though it is not relevant for you, these are the dates, the time schedule for 2021. Years to come, we expect the deadline to move to the end of the year before I will explain it a little bit better with your permission. Had it been a normal year, even though the option is for 2021, we're talking about 2021. In reality, you should submit a proposal during the autumn of 2020. That's usually the practice. It is a bit strange, but that's usually the practice. So this is just a strange year because it is the first. I think you can find many more information and many more links over here. You see that we have our own website where we try to gather all the information. You could find information in the ERC website, and I suggest you, when you get to this stage, to look at projects that were funded. This could be a fantastic idea just to brainstorm. It could even though it is a different level, it could even help you when you design your MSCA postdoctoral fellowship, just to see the trends, where things are leading, what's the commission looking for. It could be nice. And you could see some nice movies and classes and some statistics if you find it interesting, even though I know it is ahead of you, but knowledge is always very good to have it in advance. And I thank you for your listening. We are very happy to get some questions. I'll stop sharing so we could see everyone. I see you. Yes, I will send the slides to Liat, and she will share it with all of you, if that's okay.
I didn't collect people's emails. I can share it. I mean, I can share it with my group, and then if other people want it, they will have to email me and I will share it with them. Or we will put it on our website as well, if it's okay with you. So,
by all means.
Sure.
Are there more questions? So I will thank you now for listening, and I wish you the best of luck and a great planning of your future career. And I hope to hear from you rather soon.
Thank you.
I have a
Smadar.
question.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, please.
Yes. When I submit my proposal in September, I already need to have an institution that will host me the year after that.
Exactly, because your proposal is written in collaboration with your future supervisor. As you could see, this is a very challenging program, and the more assistance you get, the better. And in a way, your future supervisor shows his or her trust in you by assisting you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Smadar. I also have a small question.
Yes.
It might be a silly question, or I don't know if you have an answer, but being already in a PhD Marie Curie program, does that somehow influence the chances to get the postdoc program?
I think not, but you will have to show what you will gain from the postdoctoral fellowship. I mean, what's the gap that you will have to close by taking advantage of this fellowship? Because the gap should be rather large. If it is something very small, like if you have already been trained during your postdoc, during your PhD studies during the ITN, and you got experience with many things, then your gap is smaller, and therefore the chances for you to benefit, or I would say, it would be less attractive for your for the MSCA to find another fellowship to you. They would rather have someone who still have a lot to bridge. The gap is too large still.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
Okay, it took me a few years to publish and to submit it, a few papers. So I had something like 3 to 4 years of not of some kind of a break from publishing. I have like 3 to 4 years of that I didn't publish. Is there some kind of fellowships of the European Union, not under the Marie Curie, but still a fellowship of the European Union that can I apply to? I will be, I think, 5 years from the moment I received my PhD.
So I will relate to that in a different way, with your permission. I would say that you have to look for funding under programs which are not MSCA. If you say that you still don't have much publication, even though at this stage it took you a while to publish, okay, and you are already 5 years, that means that you are in between, you still have time, because we are talking about 8 years, so it is okay. But in other options, as I mentioned, could be either the co-fund, or sometimes there are national or even institutional funding at the host organization you would like to go to. You have to explore that. There are some kinds of global offices. They have different names, but there are offices at each universities which try to assist international students for PhD and postdoc. So if you
there was a few years ago, I think, under the European Union fellowships for people that had a break of a few years from the academia and then came back. Is there still this kind of fellowship?
it is in a way absorbed now under the postdoctoral fellowship. So at this stage, this specific group doesn't get 100%, as to the best of our knowledge. Let's put it this way. At this stage, this group is not being addressed the way it used to be addressed, meaning that they don't have special terms or any other special privileges as they had before.
So I need to apply to the regular Marie Curie.
Yep. But if you have a few publications and you are just before the 8 years, there shouldn't be any problem.
Thank you.
I can see that Asma asked something. So it would be better if we decide to do a postdoc in another kind of similar subject and not to stay researching in the same subject topic. I would say extend. I wouldn't say another kind of similar subject. I would say extend your research, meaning that if, for example, I'm talking knowingly, suppose you did something which is only a fraction of what could be done, a fraction of ageism, then try to extend it a little bit. Try to have another angle. Try to see if you can bring something new, something interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary. Try to have something which is unique. The uniqueness is important, on top of the importance of this topic to the scientific world, of course, to your career, the scientific world, and to Europe. I would try to look at it from this angle. Well, it looks like all questions were answered. Oh, there is something here. Oh, thank you, with pleasure.
Thank you. So I think that now we can move to a room and maybe afterwards people will have some more questions. So now we have a live example of a successful grant, right? Successful fellowship.
Hi. So I am very happy to meet you all. I will give you a small introduction to how I got to where I am and what I'm doing. And I would really love it if anyone has questions, just stop me whenever you want. This, in my opinion, should be pretty much a conversation. I don't have it's not like a real lecture or anything like that. And also I'm including my email at the end of the presentation. You're welcome to email me and ask additional questions. I would love to answer. As you will see, as a repeated theme in my talk is that I got a lot of help from a lot of people during my path up until now and including now. And I think it's so important to learn to ask for help and, you know, to get all the advice you can, because I think it's a really good way to learn. It's a really good way to network, and it's just really, you know, it's important. So I will share some thoughts today about doing a postdoctoral fellowship. Maybe some of you are not even sure that you want to do it. So as you will see, I definitely recommend it, even if you're not like 100% sure you want an academic career. So today I will talk a little bit about myself and where I am right now, and then how I got to this position and what I recommend doing during your postdoc. So a little bit about myself. Yes, well, the title is, and please remember this, that the road to success is just full of failures, and I will try to tell you about all of mine, just so that when you'll fail, you will not, become disappointed and think like it's the end of the road, because really, I think that if you want an academic career, you really need to learn to endure failures and to learn from them, because it's so, so important. It's part of the path. So right now, I'm in my 4th year as a postdoctoral fellow, and currently I'm on the Marie Curie Individual Fellowship, the Global Fellowship. I am at Yale University in the United States, and I am affiliated with the Department of Psychology and Psychiatry, and I'm currently on the job market. So I'm looking for a job right now, just in Israel, because I have to go back for my 12 months, but that might change in the future. We'll see. So how I got here really in broad, because this might not be relevant to all of you guys. I'm not sure even what fields you're from. So I think the psychology path is specifically complex and kind of unique, but some things are in common. So I did a BA in psychology and general literature in Israel, and then I continued to do a master's in cultural studies, which is kind of a continuation of general literature, but then I decided to go back to psychology, and I did another master's in clinical child psychology, again in Israel. And I knew from the beginning that I wanted an academic career, and I knew that I wanted to do a postdoc, of course, and but still it took me some time to realize what exactly I wanted to do, because a lot of things were interesting. And then I did a PhD in Bar-Ilan University in psychology, and at the same time, during my PhD in Israel, if you want clinical training, it doesn't come with a PhD, which is part of why it becomes so complex. So I had, in addition to my PhD, to do a clinical training, which it takes 4 years to become a clinical psychologist in Israel, and it's supposed to be like 50%, like half-time job, but it's really more than that. So it's a lot of work to do everything together. So how did I get to be a postdoc? So as I said, I knew from the beginning that I wanted to get to be a postdoc. Just as an individual quirk, I was actually born in the United States, although I grew up in Israel, and I was born in the United States because my mom did her postdoc in the National Institute of Health in the United States. So I always knew I wanted to get back there. So in the last year of my PhD, and actually even before that, and I do recommend to start thinking about this as early as you possibly can. I started thinking about applying to postdoctoral fellowship. I actually made like a table and gathered all the deadlines of when I have to submit to what. And most postdoctoral fellowships, you have to submit to them a year before you want to go. So already during the beginning of the last year of your PhD. And also, if you want to get to jobs, it's the same story. And if you want to get everything ready in time, especially if you're submitting, for example, to the Marie Curie, which is quite demanding, you need to start like a year and a half before you want to go. So that's just take that into account. And that considers, succeeding on the first try, which I did not. And I know a lot of people who don't. So perseverance is key. So in the last year of my PhD, I started applying for postdoctoral fellowships and positions. And I see that somebody might have questions. If you do, please just jump in, because it's really hard to focus on the text messages. So I applied to fellowships, but in clinical psychology, I think in biology, it's very different. For example, there aren't a lot of fellowships. There were 2 fellowships I could apply to. I didn't even get to the interview stage, and that was quite disappointing, especially because I had quite a bit of publications. But again, I could apply to only 2 fellowships. Lots of people finish a PhD in clinical psychology and in psychology in general and competed with me. These things are very, very competitive. And yeah, you're just going to fail a bunch unless, you know, you're not going to try. That's the only way not to fail. So I didn't get a fellowship. So what did I do? I also, yes, I forgot to say that I also had a baby during my last year of my PhD. So I didn't really have time to do the application for, I had my baby in June, and the application for Marie Curie is middle of September. I definitely did not have time or the ability to even think about like writing a long application. So I didn't apply that year. But I did apply for postdoctoral positions, and I'll say a little more about that. But in a lot of places in psychology, psychiatry, biology, medicine, mathematics, and lots of other fields, you can apply for a postdoctoral position, meaning that you're going to be an employee of the PI. And I can talk more about that for those who are interested. So I applied for so many positions that I found interesting. And I have to say that most people didn't even bother answering me with a no. I actually cherished the ones that, you know, answered back in a long email explaining to me that although, you know, my CV looks great, they are looking for this and that, so I'm not eligible, or, you know, things like that. That was actually really nice to even get a reply. That's how hard it is. So yeah, so I will want to say a few things about why and how you become a postdoctoral fellow with a position and not with a fellowship, because some of you might be interested in that. And the benefits, first of all, are much, much better. So what are benefits? I'm, for example, in the United States, and those of you who want to come and do research here, I definitely recommend. I think it's an amazing, amazing experience. It's very, very important, especially coming from a small country like Israel. Has some excellent researchers, but definitely it's not, you know, it's not the US. And here you have this pesky thing that you need health insurance that costs tens of thousands of dollars a year, unless your employer pays for that. And guess what? If you come on a fellowship, even if you come on the Marie Curie, your employer does not have to pay for you. And sometimes they will not pay for you. So if you get a position, it's part of your position and you just get benefits. And also those of you who have a family, or, you know, are thinking about the future, having a pension is kind of important, especially after many, many years of being a student, as I have been. So the benefit parts are definitely an important thing. And that is something that Marie Curie has in a way, but other fellowships do not. Like, for example, Social Security. You have to pay out of pocket. However, if you take a position, it's a job, okay? So you're on somebody else's project, which means you have less freedom. And for me, that was very important. I think one of the reasons I wanted an academic career was the freedom, okay? I can get a job as a clinical psychologist. I can open my clinic. I can get a job in in a lot of places, but as a researcher, I definitely did not want to work for a company or anything like that, which some people do, even in psychology. I wanted to do my own stuff. Okay, why do research if, you know, why suffer so much on the road if you don't get your freedom? So for me, that was very important. And at least in psychology, it is less lucrative to get a position than to get a fellowship. Of course, the best thing is if you get both, okay? Because then the position will give you, you know, the money for the benefits, and also if you get a position that in some places it would be considered better because they're paying you. So that means they value you. If they take you and don't pay you, maybe the PI just doesn't care about you and you just sit in their lab and do nothing. Who knows? That also can happen. So, but on your CV, it definitely looks very, very good if you get an international fellowship like the Marie Curie or something else. So there are pluses and minuses, and we can talk more about that if you want. So I got a couple of positions, but the research in both of them, though it was interesting, it wasn't exactly what I wanted, and it wasn't in super prestigious places. And I felt like, well, if I got jobs on my first try, maybe I can wait a year, finish my clinical training, and apply again for fellowships, and just apply again for positions, which, I was so optimistic about. So during the last year of my clinical training, I reapplied for fellowships. I reapplied for 3 fellowships, and I got 1. Okay, so I'm just saying I got a very prestigious fellowship, the Rothschild's postdoctoral fellowship. Those of you from Israel know it. But again, and these are the people who a year before that did not even invite me to an interview. So I'm just saying, don't despair because of rejections. They don't really say anything about you in a way. So I didn't get the Marie Curie, although I applied for it that year. I did get, a good grade. So I found that a little bit encouraging. And what's really awesome about the Marie Curie is that you get really detailed feedback about everything. And that really helped me when time came to reapply, because you can just, address all the problems that they had, correct them, and apply again, which is what I did. Okay, so the Rothschild Fellowship that I got is very lucrative, as I said, but it does not have any benefits. By the way, for the women in the crowd, I will say that a lot of fellowships have all kinds of maternity leave, maternity bonuses, like hidden inside their protocol, but unless you ask for them and insist on getting them, sometimes you will not get it. Nobody will come and tell you, like, please let us know if you have a baby during your postdoc, which I did. I heard from somebody, oh, if you have a baby, then let them know, they'll give you more money. So thank God that I talked to people, which, as I said, is key. And realized that I could get more money because I had a baby. So I talked to more fellowships, and I also spread the news to other women that I know. And when you're a postdoc, you really need every penny, especially if you have small kids. And a year after getting the Rothschild, I won the Marie Curie. And one of you asked about, does getting the Marie Curie during your PhD has anything to do with getting it later? And I would say, although maybe Smadar will say that I'm mistaken, I'm pretty sure it increases your chances. Every fellowship you get, especially international fellowship, every grant, every award, anything like that, this is something that people really, really look at. I remember that I was like, wait, but if I already got money, they wouldn't want to give me more money. They want to give it to somebody else, right? No, people want to bet on a winning horse. Okay, so if you got money, you'll get more money. If you didn't get money, try to get it, because even if it's a small award, it counts. So some thoughts that I had about getting a postdoc. Okay, so as I said, get all the help you can, and later, please give back. So people I didn't know, talk to me on the phone. I looked for names of people who got the Marie Curie and contacted them through friends. And I secured 3 proposals of funded projects. I recommend you do the same. I've shared mine with many people as well, although if this is still taped, please erase that, because I'm not sure I'm allowed to do that. But everybody does. So I just recommend just ask for help. Some people won't answer, but some people will be super, super nice, because they also got help. And I hope you guys will also help others in the future. Oh, about that. I know Smadar said you're submitting it with your PI, and your PI is supposed to be supportive and all of that. But in my experience, the PI helped very, very little, and you mostly do all the work yourself and get help from other people. The PI usually maybe looks at it at the end, says like a very general okay and something like that, but like you do the hard work yourself, that's for sure. Yeah, so a postdoc is an important decision. So consider all the options. Don't be locked on something specific. I've just talked to somebody in her PhD, and she was like, I know I want to do my postdoc with this and that. And I explained to her, no, you need to consider options. You need to talk to people. This is a huge decision. It could decide your career. It's a very short period of time and a very decisive one. It's your last stop before trying to get a job in academia. And can be a very profound experience, and it can be a very traumatic experience, and I'll also get to that. So yeah, I think doing a postdoc is something that I definitely recommend. I remember the first time I went to an international conference, and I felt amazed by all the knowledge and meeting all the people. I've just read their papers so far and finally meeting them, and you get to hear about research that hasn't been published yet. Those of you who have publications, it takes years to get something out. And in conferences, you hear about things that are going on right now. And guess what? If you're in an Ivy League university or top tier university anywhere in the world, really, but I think especially in the US, you get to hear about everything that's happening right now, to know the latest and the most advanced things. You get visits from, just other top people, and it's amazing. I really love it. I feel like I've grown a lot as a researcher, and this is something I know some people, especially with COVID and everything, are saying maybe, I'll just stay where I come from and do some kind of postdoc within the same country. But I think that this is really a big mistake. I think it's a huge opportunity, and you don't get to do it. This is also your last chance to actually spend time just doing research. Because after that, as a PI, you'll be doing lots of other things, but hands-on research, less. So that is also something important. I recommend that you think ahead right now and start to network, start going to conferences, even if it costs money. Don't be shy and introduce yourself to people who you think, could have positions later in their lab. You can talk to them, ask people to introduce you to them. If you have, I didn't believe it, but, and I don't think it's just for Israelis, but Israelis that are PIs in universities in the US are always happy to talk with Israelis. So wherever you are from, find your country members and try to use that as a network. People help their country members more than they help just random strangers. And that's actually sometimes kind of nice. Yes, also start saving now, because you're not going to make big bucks being a postdoc. Moving, if you haven't done it already, and if you haven't done it with a family already, moving costs a lot of money. Living in the US specifically, and also I know in a lot of countries in Europe, can be very expensive, and your spouse or partner, if you have one, cannot always get a job. So you'll be supporting not just yourself, those of you who have kids. And of course, education can be a huge, huge thing as well. Yeah, so start saving right now. I'm serious. I put aside the same amount of money that I knew that a regular postdoc fellowship gives a year as backup. And I was not, I ended up not having to use it because my husband found a job, but I definitely recommend doing it, because you just will feel better knowing that you have backup. Okay. An important point is don't hurry to submit your dissertation. And I think it's never a good time to have a kid, yes, but if you can have it during your PhD, it's better. Although some people might think otherwise, but it's better to do it during your PhD. I wish I had the opportunity to have both minds during that, because the clock starts ticking after you submit your PhD. A lot of fellowships, as you saw already with the Marie Curie, count the years that have gone by from the moment your PhD was approved. And some of them will take maternity leave or other kinds of leaves into account, but some of them will not. So think about that and don't hurry to submit your dissertation, no matter how much you want to get rid of it. Find out all the information you can about the PI you're planning to go. You can't be too careful. And I can't stress this enough. I don't know if you guys had experiences like that or heard of experiences like that, but people have really, really bad, not to say abusive, experiences during their postdoc fellowship. I personally know people who, their careers could have been completely ruined. They were fired last minute, and if you don't have a visa, that could even be worse. Try to find out everything you can. Try not to work with just one person, so you'll have backup. So collaborate with other people in addition, so you won't be dependent on one person's letter of recommendation. A lot of people in your PhD, you have like a network, like you have a committee or you have someone to talk to, and the university cares about their PhD students. Postdocs are at a very dangerous and problematic position. And so I definitely urge you guys to be as careful as you can. Be very mindful of looking at the history of that person and supervising. Make sure that they published with their mentees, that their mentees got to be first on the publications, that their mentees got jobs. Talk to their mentees. If none of their mentees would talk to you, that is not a good sign. Find out how hands-on they are. So some mentors are completely absent, and that's bad to one side, and some are so hands-on and perfectionist, you will not get enough publications out there. And that could also be a very, very serious problem. And I do urge you guys to please, I know that you can become very focused on just getting a postdoc, but this can be a very, very difficult experience. And I really heard horror stories, so be careful. So I recommend applying for funding like the Marie Curie and other fellowships, but to make sure that the PI has money too. Like a friend of mine went somewhere where the PI said in advance that he has no money to pay for her research. So I don't know if I would do that, okay? Because you need money to pay participants, for example, or to buy materials, or to go on conferences, or if you have funding for 1 year, you want them to extend it to another year. So definitely check out how good your PI is at getting funding, because that can also be an issue. You don't want to get stuck with no option, that your PI, even if they like you and want you to stay, can't afford for you to stay. That also happens. Think carefully where you want to live. I heard that many, many times before I chose where I am, and I listened, but I didn't listen enough. So I urge you guys to think really carefully. Visit if you can the place. Think about the cost of living, of course, but also think about a place where it will be fun to live. It's going to be your life for some time, and you want to have fun and not just to do research. So if you have a family, definitely very important to consider their happiness, because you're not going to have, you know, a super extended support system as you probably have where you've been for the last few years. You're going to be with your immediate family and that's it. And you want them to be happy. So take that into account. So some thoughts during a postdoc. Does anyone have questions? You want to like barge in and ask me something?
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I actually put in the chat the presentation from that Smadar used, so people can just download it now if they were interested.
Okay. Anyone has questions, or I'll say a few words about getting what I recommend to do during your postdoc or like as you're preparing to getting it. Okay. So during your postdoc, so yeah, I gather that you guys know that, but immigration is really hard. It's harder with family, or maybe it's different kind of hard with family. It's always complicated. I thought immigrating to the US would be easy because I'm a citizen and I know the language, but knowing English, you know, does not mean you know the language. It's really a different culture and you need time to get used to that. So take that into account. And also so far in your PhD, you were kind of like in a regional competition. I gather that you guys all got funding or got into a prestigious program. So, you know, you do have, you know, a record of success, but it's like, I always said that when I came here, it's like in Israel, it's like I won the regional Israel contest and then I came to the US, to Yale, and it's like, oh my God, I'm in the Olympic Games. Everyone here won the regionals. Everyone here is amazing. And that in itself is not an easy experience. So it is something that you guys should be prepared for. Yes, also lots of opportunities for, you know, hearing lectures and taking courses and collaborating on studies and networking and so many options. And a friend of mine once told me in the first year of the PhD, of the postdoc, she was like, the problem with the PhD is that you come from the PhD to the postdoc, it's like you're trying to drink from a fire hydrant. It's just like, it's too much. You can't, you may have fantasies about all the things you're going to learn and do and travel and stuff. You're not going to do everything. You have to try and like pick and choose and really focus. Otherwise, you're just going to spend all your time hearing lectures and not publishing, and that would be a problem. So postdoc is really a short time. Most postdoctoral fellowships are just for 1 year. They kind of count on you finding funding for additional years during that first year, which is not fun, let me tell you. Some are for longer, but in any case, even a period of 2 years can be a very short time. So prepare in advance. What do I mean? Plan as much as you can before you get there. So a friend of mine is planning to do an experiment, and she already picked all the stimuli the participants are going to see in advance. And I think that's what you should do, because once you want to hit the ground running. So plan as much as you can in advance, be in touch with your PI if you can on a weekly basis. If they're not available, maybe you should reconsider that PI, because you want to get there and get going. You don't want to waste any time. Doing the IRB, the ethics review for your study, also do it in advance if you can, submit it. It took me over a year. I'm doing neuroimaging study on children and adolescents. It took me over a year to get IRB approval. I had to go through 4 different committees here in Yale. And that is not unheard of for people to like waste their time just waiting for the IRB. So I definitely recommend to try and do that in advance. And especially if you have funding just for 1 year, make sure the PI has data you can work on. Okay, so you can just get to the lab, start working on data that's already there, in addition to opening your new project, and start publishing as quickly as you can, because publishing, as you know, or if you don't, you will know, it takes time, unless you're super lucky. Yeah, during your postdoc, try to network as much as you can. So I think it's really, really important to get to know a lot of people, to create collaborations. It's, you know, it's something that you're going to use in your career later on. And also what I did, and I recommend you guys do also, is I have friends who are also doing a postdoc in psychology, and I invited them to my lab meetings with my PI, so they can talk in front of a different lab and present their work and have an experience and network. And, you know, creating networks for your friends is also, I think, it's fun and it's recommended. And again, this is something that people will later do for you, so you should do it. Make sure you have a support system. Other people in the same career stage is something that you simply have to have in your life. So look for them early on. Stay in touch with your friends and family. Take them with you, visit, whatever. It's really, really, really important. Make sure you have additional mentors. Your mentor might be amazing at publishing studies, but not so good at securing funding, or not so good at creating collaborations, or not expert on a specific method. So it's very rare that one mentor can give you everything, you know? So it's good if you have more than one. It means more recommendations, more people looking out for you, more perspectives, and more expertise. So I definitely recommend that. And therapy during your postdoc. So yeah, I definitely recommend not being shy and going to professional help. I might be biased because I am a clinical psychologist, but I think it's definitely something you should consider. And yeah, that's just a thank you note for all that. As you can see, many, many people who collaborated with me, helped me, and got me to where I am today. And that's it. Thank you guys for listening. And if you have any questions, you can email me, or yeah, just jump in right now.
Thanks a lot. I think it's really valuable feedback for everyone. I really appreciate that. And people are welcome to ask questions if they have any.
Reuma, thank you very much for your presentation. It was very clear and very interesting, and very kind. So if I understood well, you took the global plan, and so you knew in advance that you would go for a few years to the US, and you already had planned to get back to Israel. That's an option in the global plan. That was not clear at all to me. And how can you plan so many years in advance? Because Smadar said that you have to have it all planned, where you're going to go, and where you're going, the European country you're going to go afterwards. How do you have all that planned? And did you go to the Rothschild Fellowship? You didn't tell us. How did this all work out?
So what I did, and again, I do recommend talking to a lot of people and hearing from them about their path, because I think that's one of the best ways to learn. So what I did is I went to with the fellowship, the Rothschild. You can go anywhere. I went to the place where I was planning to do my Marie Curie anyway, and I there like 2 weeks before I had to submit the Marie Curie again. So I, you know, rewrote it as I was sitting in my new lab and just submitted it again for the same place. And because I ended up, you know, things also change, and the mechanism understands that. So for example, when I started the Marie Curie, I asked for not to start straight away, but to wait an additional year, because I just had the baby and I didn't want to, you know, start full-time job, because I knew that I wouldn't make it. And I have to say that now with COVID, I'm still like not sure that I will be able to finish my project in the 2 years, and I might ask for extra time, which, you know, I don't know who is going to pay for that extra time. That is also a question. So making these plans, it's really hard, but I think the mechanism also is aware of the fact that you're going to make changes. So I do know that if I get a position already this year, for 2021, for September 2021, I do understand that I don't have to do the year back in Tel Aviv University that I have committed to doing. I can also take it to a different university in Israel, and I think even in other places in Europe, if I'm not mistaken. So, there is flexibility. You make a plan, but you can also change it. And I even know about somebody that because she left the field completely after her 2 years in the US, they even did not make her come back. I don't know if that happens a lot, but I hear all kinds of stories. Most people I know came back for an additional year or started a job right away. So yeah, it's hard. It's really hard to make the plans.
If you allow me, I would like to intervene for a second. Reuma, there is a question for you in the meanwhile at the chat. But yes, the grant is portable, meaning that you can ask when you want to be back to move your grant from the host organization you originally mentioned to another host organization. At the same time, it is not an easy thing. The first thing is that you have to show the rationale for this movement. And you have to show that moving to another host organization will provide you more benefits in the long run and more skills, connections, whichever you claim, in the new host organization over the old or the current host organization. It should be an agreement, not only between you and the new host organization, but also between you and the old, okay? This used to be the type of grant that Reuma has now. If this will be the case in the new program, we are not too sure yet, because this portability was not towards the very end, it was not that much in favor. So we will have to wait and see, but Reuma still benefits from it. Okay, Reuma also benefited from a few other tiny little features that were in Horizon 2020. And so far we haven't seen them in Horizon Europe. So some of the things, yes, Reuma shared her experience, which is fantastic. And all these tiny little tips on daily life, which are so important for you. But you have to remember that the document by which you will have to work and follow will be the official work program and hopefully the guide for applicants, where all terms are set there. Thank you.
And I do want to add that there is, for those of you who are considering going to the United States, there is a complication that Smadar, I'm not sure if the European Union is aware of that. So right now on the fellowship that I am on, the Marie Curie says that I have to dedicate 100% of my time to this research. And this actually precludes me from applying for grants that will subsidize my research, not pay me, but subsidize my research. So if I want to pay participants, I can't. And that, I think that is kind of a miscommunication between how the Europe pays for research and how in the US they pay for research. The systems work differently and they don't communicate. So that is also a problem.
It is a challenge, and this is true. The European Commission is aware of that, but still they follow their rules. And they would like the researchers to find a solution. That you are absolutely right. Yes, there are some gaps, and sometimes it is a bit challenging to overcome these differences. Yes.
Yeah. I ended up submitting, not using my name. I just submitted, but I don't get the credit for it. So my PIs get the credit for the grant that I wrote, which is, it's a solution, not the best solution, but it happens pretty much like a lot of the time. So yeah, what can I do? At least there's money for a research assistant full-time and, you know, paying participants and stuff. That's important. So, okay, there's a question here about being a female researcher and how to balance it with taking care of babies and stuff like that. I don't have anything encouraging to say. It's really hard. It's really hard to be a woman. It's really, really hard to be a mom in academia. It's a challenge. You can make it work if you have a supporting, involved partner, if you have a supporting, involved family, if you have money and can pay for help. My kids definitely spend a lot more time at school than I want them to. They're very, very young. They stay at school till 5, which to me is, you know, horrible, but I don't have family here. So that's, you know, we have to work, and that's just the way it is. Nobody will give you any allowances for being on maternity leave or being, you know, slower during your pregnancy. Nobody is going to be considerate. Don't expect that. So yeah, I'm sorry I don't have anything encouraging to say. I will say it is possible. I think it's also a part of like making a decision. Most women that I know work after the kids have gone to sleep. What it does to their relationship with their significant other, I don't know. I try not to do it. That said, I have been working like crazy, including weekends the last 3 months when I was on the job market. And that is not easy. That is not easy. And it's a very stressful career. And you have to learn to say that there will always be more, you know, it's like there will always be better than you, that publishes more than you, that does more than you, that works more than you. So you need to just make a decision as to how much time you're willing to spend away from your kids and how much time you're willing, you know, how quickly you're willing to go back to work. Having fellowships that the money came from me and not from my employer gave me a lot of freedom. Those of you who are not aware should know that in the United States, there is no maternity leave. It doesn't exist. Postdocs at Yale get 6 weeks off if your child is in the NICU, and you want to be with them, it counts as your maternity leave. You don't get extra time, no Social Security, there is nothing. Because I was on my own money, I did whatever I wanted. And, you know, but yes, my career suffered. You know, there was a year where I have no paper out. Could my postdoc have, my CV could have been much, much better if I did not have kids. I'm aware of that. I'm not sorry for that, but you know, you have to take that into account. I definitely recommend that you be very, very clear with your partner about their need to be involved, and also be clear with yourselves that yes, sometimes, although you're the mom, you're not going to be the one who is there all the time, and you're just going to learn to let that one go, and it's not easy. But I do recommend that you do that because nobody else is going to do it for you. Make sure you have a support group of women. Don't go to work for people who don't have young kids or don't have kids or had kids only after they were tenured, because they, you know, not that people with kids or women will for sure understand you, no, but they're just more likely to. I definitely find that women who don't have kids have no clue and cannot really be supportive. And I'm sorry to say that, but that's been my experience. You know, they want, even if they want to be, I think it's such a consuming experience that it's really hard to understand. Again, as I said, women with kids do it. they do. If you can postpone having kids until after you get a job, or finish with it while you're in your PhD, definitely that's the best options. I did not have that luxury. So, you know, maybe I will have to settle for a job that is not as lucrative as I would want. That is a possibility.
So another intervention, if you allow me, on my side, since Uma just shared with you how hard it was with no additional funding, I just would like to remind you that as of 2021, there will be some funding for maternity leave. It won't be a huge sum of money, but still there would be some funding for that. Yeah. Based on Uma and many more female experience, yes.
That's really important, Smadar, and it's not that I don't appreciate it, and I actually did get some additional funding because of the fellowships that I was on, and as I said, I got some extra time, but you know, it doesn't pay for the time. It doesn't pay for the fact that, you know, you don't sleep for the first year, and you know, you get it, your career takes a hit. It recuperates later, but it takes a hit, and I think you just need to accept it and not compare yourself to men, because it's just, you know, it's just going to make you feel bad. So.
Can I ask another question about the maternity and career? With your experience, what you've seen around you, and maybe as a psychologist, I would like to ask, because I hesitate a lot if to go for a year alone or with my family. My kids are already more grown, they're not babies. So this is my big hesitation. What do you think?
How big are they, if I may ask?
The oldest is 18, the youngest is 9.
Oh, wow. 18 is hard to get them moving.
For kids. No, she's already out of the house. So
okay. I would take the kids with me. I would go, the whole family. I can't imagine being here without them, missing them. And I think, you know, it's hard with kids, but it's also an experience for them. It's a very special experience. It's going to be something, you know, you can do amazing trips here as a family. I don't know. I think it's something worth doing. Your partner has to be in on it, of course. You know, they have to be supportive. But I definitely don't recommend coming here alone. I know some people do it and, you know, come to visit a lot, and that is doable. And some people are like, okay, if my kids won't see me for, you know, 2 months, it's not the end of the world. We can FaceTime, we can this, we can that. I don't believe in that. I don't think it's the same. I think physical presence is really important. And I think that maybe a couple of months is not a long time for an adult, but it's a lifetime for a kid, even 9-year-old. It's a long time. I don't know, but yeah.
This option, I was thinking more Europe for the option of the being on the line, not America really. But Europe, it's done.
I know people who have done it in the US. Yes, I do know of people who did it. I think if it's either that or to not do it at all, then I would, you know, do that option, definitely. I think going with your family is better, but going is better than not going, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Yeah. I see about a question. Being too shy to make the first step. As I said, and I'm kind of biased, I feel like a dentist, you know, telling people to floss. I know nobody wants to do that, but, and I'm a clinical psychologist, and I tell everyone to go therapy. Being too shy is not recommended in academia. You need to talk in front of people. You need to make yourself, you know, I always say that like being a good researcher is a combination of being like a little bit narcissistic with being a little bit obsessive compulsive, because you need to get fellowships, you have to really believe that what you're doing is the most important thing in the world. And so that's the being a little narcissistic part. and you have to be a little bit obsessive to do your research in a good way. So if you're shy, you need to work on that. I know it's hard. I remember the first time I had to talk in English in front of people, I was like terrified. I was terrified. I was like, no, I don't know how I'm gonna do that. And it's like, oh, it was terrible. And I finally got to the point after practicing, of course, of telling myself, okay, so I'm gonna talk in front of people, and maybe it's gonna be really bad, but it's just not gonna be the end of the world. So I'm just gonna have to go and do it, because, you know, I'm not gonna change career because it's really hard for me to talk in front of people in English. Yeah, and I did it, and, you know, it was not the end of the world. And I definitely recommend working on it. If you're really shy, you can, you know, just practice a lot, and just, I feel like exposure is our best therapy for anxiety. So just doing something you're afraid of often helps you be less scared of it. So practice, email people, introduce yourself to people, have people introduce you. You learn how to do it. If you're too shy and don't want to talk about yourself, ask people questions. You know, it's kind of like dating, you know, it's awkward. Of course it's awkward. It's awkward for everyone. But, you know, the more you do it, the better you'll be. So I definitely recommend trying to deal with that part of your difficulties, because you're going to need to be able to talk to other people. And don't let that stop you.
Thank you so much, both Roma and Smadar. I think that all these questions are actually really, really, really important, and you've been very, very honest in responding to them. So thank you. I think it's good for people to know this in advance when they're just starting. So again, I hope everyone has enjoyed it as much as I have. And thanks once again.
Thank you, guys.
With pleasure.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Good luck.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, good luck to everyone. Thank you.
תודה רבה.
תודה.
בשמחה.
תודה רבה.